So, as Victoria said, we are going to briefly go over, it is a new and improved, from my perspective, evaluation process. A lot of materials are in here, but I think we'll work from this one because this will be the reference material that you will refer to back constantly with regards to the new superintendent's evaluation. We spent a good bit of time in revising the evaluation tool by working with NJASA. There were a group of superintendents who met with a group from our association to go over the previous tool that we had and make some new improvements to the tool. And what we really did was the goals portion, when you look at it, will be very similar to the tool that we've used in the past. The piece that has changed dramatically is the leadership standards, which was part 2 of the evaluation. And so when the two groups came together, what they did was they used the 2015 ISLIC standards for principals and administrators as a base, and what they did was they took the 10 indicators that were in there, they brought it down to 6 indicators that really go back and really refer and give us a better picture of the job that the superintendent does here in our district. So that's the background of the tool. If you start to look through our booklet and you go to, let's start with page 1, because one of the things that we encourage, which most districts are doing anyway, is to have a pre-conference with your superintendent prior to the board completing their portion of the evaluation. And all that is a final wrap-up from the superintendent with regards to the progress towards the achievement of the goals for the year. So that as you're moving into completing your portion online, you've had that last wrap-up on the goals. So the other thing that is very different is the ratings that we're using. If you look at the bottom of page 1, you will see the ratings that we are migrating towards, with them being exemplary, proficient, an area for growth, unsatisfactory, and not observed. I do want to talk about the not observed rating. That one is neither positive nor is it negative. It's just that you may not be aware of that particular standard and or indicator during your time of service on the board. And most often, the people who will rate something as not observed tend to be our newer board members. However, with the new tool, and in both the goals section as well as in the leadership standards, the superintendent is now going to be providing evidence for both the goals and the standards. So he's providing the evidence, and based on the evidence, you should be able to make an assessment of either that goal and or a standard based on the evidence that the superintendent is providing. If at any point in time you have any questions, just chip in, and ask away. Page 2 will show you also with those new definitions, it's really important to know, you really need to read them for each of the standards as you're going through, because those definitions change slightly based on those particular indicators. The other thing that is new with the evaluation, and you'll see it at the bottom of page 2, is when you are evaluating the standards, the leadership standards, you're going to go through and evaluate each indicator. But what we're asking you to do is, once you've gone through and you've evaluated each indicator, is to go back, look at where you've plotted out your responses, and then give an overall rating for that standard. So, you would expect that if most of your tick marks are in exemplary and proficient, that the overall rating is not going to be unsatisfactory. So you want to go back and look at that, and then make your own assessment, which will make it much easier when the time comes for you to have your discussion as to where the majority of the board has rated the superintendent. Because the other thing that is really important to remember is the final written evaluation for the superintendent reflects the majority opinion of the board. So that written evaluation ends up being what the majority of the board has indicated. So if the majority of the board really feels that the superintendent has done a proficient job in his role as superintendent, the evaluation gets written up as being proficient. That minority opinion does not disappear, it's just not included in the written evaluation. That minority opinion of the board gets expressed verbally to the superintendent during the summary conference that you're going to have with him as a wrap-up to the evaluation. And that then, that minority opinion will get expressed to him so that he knows that there is one, what that minority opinion is, so that he can begin to address it. The other thing is written comments. I am a little bit of a stickler with regards to written comments. I tell my boards it's a requirement, it's not an option, to be able to provide comments in your evaluation, because that will assist the board president when she goes to write that summary evaluation, so that it is the board members' words versus trying to interpret what the board may be saying, or she's providing comments on her own, which would potentially reflect her opinion of the superintendent and not necessarily the board. So that is one part of the evaluation that I say is not a negotiable, sorry. And then you will have that pre-conference potentially, as well as after you all meet in closed session and you come up with that majority opinion, the board president writes the evaluation, and then she's going to give it to the superintendent prior to the board meeting with the superintendent in closed session to have a discussion about the evaluation, so that he could either ask questions, or the board could provide that minority opinion or any other discussion points around the evaluation. And then after you have that summary conference, then the evaluation is signed by the board president and the superintendent. And a copy goes into his personnel file. The board's supposed to retain a copy of the written evaluation, and I generally recommend that you hand it off to your board attorney so that he can keep it in the board's permanent file, so that if the board should ever need to access their copy for whatever reason, the board attorney will have it. And then just because, I think it's important to know also, that just because the superintendent signs the evaluation does not necessarily mean that he agrees with it. It means that he's received it. And then, based on the statute and code, he does have 10 days after he meets with the board to either provide a rebuttal to the evaluation if he chooses, or make any attachments to his evaluation. If he does make any attachments to his evaluation, no matter what they may be, he does need to let the board know that he's made an attachment to the evaluation. The board is entitled to see what those attachments are, however, the board cannot remove them. So those are just a couple of important things for you to know as you move forward with the process. You will not be able to access the evaluation until after the superintendent has gone in and provided information. He'll put his goals in, and then he will provide that documentation through links that you will all be able to click onto, to go to whatever evidence he is supplying, make your assessment, and then complete the evaluation. He will also have the opportunity to provide any additional comments in addition to the evidence that he supplies under the superintendent's comments. So the goals portion will really look like it has in the past. The only other thing that will be there will be an area for those links for the evidence that the superintendent is going to provide. Your username to access the evaluation is your district email address, whichever email address has been sent to us for our census at the association. If your email address hasn't changed and you remember your password from previous years, you're all set and ready to go. If you don't remember it, you can go in and create a new password. There's an area under the evaluations where you can go in and recreate a password. If you look on page 5, there is a calendar here. Vicki, there is a hard copy of that evaluation in the packet for you to kind of plan out with the superintendent what your timelines are going to be. If you want it in a Word document, just shoot me an email, I'll get it to you, that way you can complete it, send it out to the board. And then, we just really need to make sure that the entire process, from soup to nuts, is completed by that July 1st deadline, otherwise you'll lose 6 points in CUSAC.
I know, that's it, that's why we got it done, okay.
Yeah.
I knew there was a reason why we were killing ourselves.
Yes,
or
yes. So that is really critical, and I do know that our esteemed executive county superintendent is checking for those dates to see when the evaluations have been completed, and I do have a few that have lost the points. So I guess the evaluation police have really arrived.
You mean approved and submitted?
The summary conference, everything needs to be completed by July 1st. Yes.
Yeah. Kathy, I have a question.
Sure.
So this, do you know, one of the issues, like to follow your encouragement, strong instruction that we should be doing comments. It's the same, and I know I emailed you last year, like my comments disappeared if I get signed off in the middle of typing and trying to edit and trying to go back and forth.
That's supposed to have been
Remedied?
Yes.
Okay. That would be that would go in the improved column?
Yes, that would go into the improved column because we did have some issues last year, and so, we told IT we can't continue with this, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed. So far, I haven't had anybody access the superintendent's evaluation. I have had a few boards that have accessed the board's self-evaluation and hasn't had any issue with that.
Okay.
So with regards to the board self-evaluation, if you're going to use our online tool for that, the board can complete that now. It's open and ready to go. It's just you're not going to be able to do anything with regards to the superintendent's evaluation until he has entered all of his information. The other thing that they've done this year is there will be a 48-hour time lag between the time the superintendent says save and complete and the board gets notification that the evaluation is ready for you to complete. And that really is because In the past, what has happened is the superintendent has completed his portion of the evaluation, and then the board has been notified, and some board members do it immediately following the notification, and the superintendent says, uh-oh, I need to make some edits to my portion of the evaluation. The only way for us to have done it in the past is to completely wipe it out and for it to be started all over again, which means that that board member has to go back in and redo theirs. So now there is a 48-hour time lag, but it's not if Robert goes in and completes his and then does save and complete. It doesn't restart the 48 hours, it's just 48 hours from the first time he hits save and complete, and then you'll all receive an email that it's ready for you. I will receive that same email so that I will know for me to go in and start tracking. The other thing that they've done is allowed you, Vicki, to be able to go in and track the evaluation yourself. You will see who completed it, but you won't be able to see what they've done. For this first year, moving to this new one, I will still be tracking, and I will still be sending you those emails that say, here's who's done it, you need to start pestering those other people. So if you're getting multiple emails from Vicki, know that she's getting multiple emails from me, because it's important. I want you to make that July 1 deadline. I don't want you to lose points, so I generally track it. Check it on Monday. I tend to send her an email. Sometimes Monday and Friday, sometimes it's only once a week, so that she can stay on top of you all to get the evaluation completed. If you look on page 7, this is exactly what the new standards are going to look like whenever you go in to complete the evaluation. You'll see the definition of the standard. You will see then the definitions for the ratings. And then we list sample resources that you may see from the superintendent with regards to that particular standard. He does not need to supply all of them. If he wants to supply all of them, he can. If there are things that are not listed here that he wants to supply to you, he can do that. And then you'll go through, you'll do your ticks for each of the individual indicators and do that overall assessment. And you'll see the 6 standards are listed in here. And then the other thing that will happen is on page 13, there will be a template that will be accessible by the board president for her to begin to populate and create that written summary evaluation. And Vicki, it will come in, it will be a PD, it will be an you can get access to the compiled evaluation. It will be in a PDF format that you'll be able to copy and paste comments from that PDF into this Word
That would be
document.
helpful.
Yes.
Like I was typing.
Yes, that was one of the things. It's recreating everything, as far as comments go. So that will be there to assist you also whenever you go to complete that piece. And you'll see it just has from page 13 to 15 things that you can use as the template. The other thing is on page 16, where we ask you about the superintendent demonstrating areas of strength. In the past, board members would only indicate one. If you feel that the superintendent's areas of strength are all 6, you can put a check beside all 6 areas moving forward. And then the overall summary evaluation comments may be just some wrap-up overall comments that the board may want to include in thanking the superintendent for the job that he has done over the past year. And it really is important when you go to complete the evaluation that you do use the entire year's worth of work. Because too many times I have seen where a superintendent's evaluation, believe it or not, may be based on the one last thing that went sour in the district. And that's what the entire evaluation is based on, where we really want it to be a retrospective of the entire year's worth of work that the superintendent has done. One of the things, Robert, that you may want to do is share your job description with the board, so that as they're completing the evaluation, they know what your job description is, the things that you do as part of your job, so that they can include any items with regards to that in the evaluation. I don't know if there are any other questions.
I had a few questions.
Sure, go ahead, Mike.
First of all, I don't know how baked the programming is at this time, but one of the things, and I say this for fairness to the superintendent, one of the things I would recommend is that in each of these standards, that the standards automatically populate the final standard based on what's been placed in the items 1 through 7. So see what happens, I think sometimes, which I've seen in these evaluations, which frankly I think is unfair, is you'll see people put in the performance levels of these specifics, but it doesn't correlate with the final mark.
Correct.
And I think if you set the system up so that it would analyze what's been put into the individual granular markings, so that the final marking reflects that, I think that would go a long way to create some consistency.
I agree.
Okay.
No, I do agree. I think for this year, it won't happen.
Okay.
Only because the system is up and running. However, that will be information that I take back, because we do want to continue.
I just think that would be
improve the
strong. Yeah. The other thing is, and I'm pleased to hear that the system's been set up so you can go backwards and see what you had for your comments. But actually, another way of handling that is that when you get to the end of the computer screens and you're now on the overall summary evaluation, it would make sense for the system to basically aggregate what you've written so far and appear in that particular window, so you can edit against that. And that way you won't have to be going backwards and forwards and flags. You'll actually have it all there in front of you, and then you can make what appropriate edits you think you need to make. The other reason for doing that is, again, an attempt for consistency. The overall summary evaluation should be reflective of what's been said up to that point anyways, and shouldn't just suddenly go off the rails in some other direction.
Right.
Okay. The third thing I wanted to ask you about, and I'm not sure, is the state mandating this July 1st deadline? Because what bothers me, and has bothered me for as long as I've been here, is that the superintendent's goals are based on a full school year, and they never get a chance to show the full school year. And we do get situations as board members where we're almost forced to give the superintendent an incomplete because we're really not sure how it's going to end. I mean, we usually give them a pass. I totally get that. But why we can't have this for August 1st? I don't know if the world is going to come to an end if the appraisal came August 1st.
I agree. I agree.
Please bring that back to the powers that be.
And I think
is it state mandated?
Yes, it is. That is part
Let's get Serena DeMasso on the phone.
Okay, so yes, let's do to change it. And I'm going to tell you that previous to this, the deadline was April 1st.
No, I know, it's pretty crazy.
So, at least now they've extended it to July. However, I agree with you 100%, because unless it's something that, can get completed by, April, May, his goals are always going to be in progress.
Right.
Versus actually completed. However, it also is important that whenever you meet over the summer and do your retreat and get final update on the goals then, so that you'll know that they were completed. However, it really won't be reflected in that year's evaluation. I do agree with you 100% about that timeline.
Okay.
So I think we all need to reach out to our legislators and say, although we do appreciate that July 1 deadline, it would be much easier if it was either August 1st or September 1st.
But in fairness, in corporate environments that I've worked in, the same problem occurs. We get our appraisals done in end of October. And, you know, so the last thing I was just going to ask you, just to make sure I understood the sheet. When it says your superintendent goals assessment, you're talking about the goals we give the superintendent, not any merit goals or anything like that?
No, those are the ones that you've mutually agreed to, that he's working on just as part of his regular job. Those merit goals you're going to do separate and apart. I will tell you, last year, you know, I did have some boards that used the new tool. The feedback that I got from them was positive from both the superintendent's perspective as well as the board's perspective. It's always been, you know, I've sat in your seat, I sat there for 9 years. To me, it's really important that when we, the board, evaluate our superintendent, that we really do look at that entire year's worth of work and be able to provide good, actionable feedback to our superintendent to let them know about the job that they're doing here in the district. This new tool, as far as I'm concerned, because of the evidence that the superintendent is going to provide the board, will keep the board focused on the superintendent's job and what he's doing versus personality issues. And some things like that do occur, but we really want you to focus on the job that the superintendent's doing. And I think for the superintendents, those that I've spoken with, they are very appreciative that it does keep the board focused on the job that the superintendent is doing, on the accomplishment of those goals, to make it fair, I think, for both the board and the superintendent.
I also appreciate how you make the school board members look so good looking. I think that's a real thing for us to all shoot for.
Okay, that's always a good thing. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I guess the next step, Vicki, is for you and Robert to sit down and come up with that calendar. Once you've completed it, if you just kind of shoot me an email, let me know what your timelines are, and then, you know, we'll keep up to speed with regards to, you know, the status, and then go from there. The other thing, just so you know, you can, which I think we did last year, where you were able to download and get the evaluation electronically, and make copies for those board members. Just make sure that you stay within the rice notice times also, so that each time you go into closed session to discuss that evaluation, the superintendent has his rice notice, including a rice notice for when you have that summary conference with him. Okay?
We're good.
All right, great, thanks.
Everyone good? Yes.